Sean, is there an overriding characteristic that you would, I guess, place on this team, whether it be resilience or whatever, now that you look back at it?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think that's something that, you find out you find out about really when guys have adversity. It's one of the things we look for when we're putting a team together, the makeup and toughness and grit, if you will. And I think it serves you well, not necessarily when you're winning, but it serves you well when you have to overcome some adversity. And I think clearly that would be a trait I would describe of this team.
Yeah, Sean, if you could share, kind of what are the conversations you have after a season that ends this way with kind of that whiplash of not making the playoffs versus, the last 4 years where it's been a loss in the playoffs? Does it kind of have a different feel to it in terms of how you enter the offseason?
Well, I think Malcolm said something yesterday, and it resonated, and it's true. His experience, because these things end the same way. They end in the locker room with players packing. They end with the team meeting. They end with, we're going to forward you the schedules via email once we get a better idea of the off season. They end with players getting exit physicals. They end with players, having some off-season surgeries done, cleanup work done, or significant surgeries done. They end with evaluations by the coaching staffs on the individual players throughout the year, and then and so that cycle begins. That's the best way to describe. What was unique yesterday. What was unique yesterday is that typically what I just described follows a loss. And so what was unique yesterday is, man, you're getting ready for this week. You're playing Atlanta, of course, in the division. You need to win this game, you need to play well. And we do that, and then you come in and you watch the finish of a game, and then I said this last night to my wife, I said, God, for a second there, it feels like we lost. And so I know why it feels that way, but that's the difference relative to the past 24 or 48 hours.
Sean, when you speak of that grit and resilience players, how do you know you have it? How do you determine whether it's there?
I think it's demonstrated. I think people have behavior patterns, and you lose a tough game, you come back and get ready to play. I thought we lost a tough game week 2 and then went on the road at New England 1-1. You get relocated. You see it. You see it with players. You see it with coaches. It's a long season, so coming back to work, after a tough loss is you can't wait to play the next game, and you work harder, and so it's something you see, and it becomes easier to see the more you're in this thing a long time. You can identify it with players, coaches. You can identify it with a lot of different employees.
How tough is it to keep, I guess, Josh, from drifting either mentally or physically when you're going through a process like this, or you're losing 5 games in a row, and to get them to bounce back and finish out the way they did?
Yeah, I think that leans on leadership, both from within the team, from the coaching staff. That leads on, the next plan. It gets back to the ingredients. It's back to getting the right type of people in the building, because if you don't have that, then what we're talking about becomes impossible.
Sean, I know there's not always carryover from one year to another, but I always remember during those 7 and 9 seasons when you pointed to that one photo on the sideline and sort of the energy of the young players you had brought in. Do you get a similar vibe that you're building around a good core here, and that can carry over?
Listen, I think the core is. You say, well, I think we've been building around a real good core since 17. If you really look closely at, some of the older players prior, that draft class, man, I think there's a lot of guys here. I mean, shoot, I don't know how many wins in the last, call it 4 years, 5 years, but I think these guys have won a lot of games.
Sean, do you? I know there's always change. Do you anticipate any of your coaches getting interviews, considering the success you all had recently?
Yeah, look, I think that comes with success, and I think it's a positive thing, and hopefully that happens again for guys get opportunities. But I think that's part of the deal, and there's certainly change every year.
Sean, is there anything that's sticking with you as you look back on the season, like a stretch of games or one game in particular, or anything that?
No, look, there's a handful of things that you can look at. What's that?
Well, I just ended with anything that gnaws at you that lingers.
Oh, there's always a lot of things that gnaw at me, but no, there's not one specific thing, that not anything that just grinds. I mean, there's a handful of things relative to the course of the season, and it just is what it is.
Sean, early in the free agency or in the offseason last year, you publicly said you wanted to bring Jameis Winston back. Do you know yet what the plan is as far as that goes?
We literally just finished meeting with our players, and so none of those discussions or evaluations or any of that would have taken place yet. Those will begin to take place in the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Sean, do you know anything more about Taysom Hill's injury?
Yeah, it's a Liz Frank. He actually had one. He just was up here. We were talking. He had one before on his right foot. So when he planted, because I didn't see how it happened, but when he planted with his left foot, he felt something. My take is they'll have to do a surgery. That's what I heard today. So it's a Liz Frank. They'll repair that area and then do a smaller surgery to remove the hardware after it's healed.
Did any of that come with any sort of projected timetable?
No, listen, it's not going to impact his off season, and I wouldn't go through timetables right now. You asked what the injury was, and I'm telling you it's a Liz Frank. So. All right. I appreciate you guys. Keep going.
Well, I was going to say, the quarterback position was obviously a huge story of the offseason. We went through 17 games. Actually saw all four, quarterbacks start at least one game.
Yep.
Just curious, what your biggest takeaways are on how that position and how that situation kind of developed, and then head into the offseason.
I think it's way too early to even answer that. A lot of guys got an opportunity to play, not just at quarterback. And again, we've got a whole month ahead of us here where we're going to be sitting down, going through each position. We just finished playing yesterday. All right. Thank you, guys.